Gentlemen, it is the day after Christmas. It's the day when all the people in the UK are out in the streets fighting each other, as they say, on Boxing Day.
That's right.
But you know what we say about that? People can get out in the streets and they can box on Boxing Day because that's all right
That's all
then.
right then.
Oh God.
Oh, we are not a minute into this, and I've already got a oh God from Clarence Brown. Christmas is complete.
Yeah.
So
That's all you wanted.
That's all I wanted. So thank you all for watching us for 49 seconds. Thank you much.
Yeah.
But if you
Next time we'll. Oh,
yeah, next time we'll what? What will we do next time? Maybe we'll go out on a journey and find our recorder. Who knows? But what I do know is if you are watching us streaming wise, thank you. We're glad that you are here. And this is Discussing Who, so let's get right into the reason we are here. The Discussing Network presents Discussing Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Kyle Jones, and I want to start this festive episode by welcoming back the first person I can see under me in the video, Clarence Brown. Clarence, how are you?
Oh man, I am doing great. Not too bad. Glad to be here on a holiday occasion, holiday weekend. Well, the end of a holiday weekend, and back into the real world. But very much enjoyed this episode. I can't wait to talk it out.
So, did you have a good Christmas? Let me ask this before we move on.
Yeah, it was good, man. Went as I expected. Nothing too crazy, but very much enjoyed it. Always good to catch up with family and friends and have some good food as well. So yeah.
Indeed, indeed. I'm glad you ate well. That is always a very important part. And what is a very important part of Discussing Who? Welcoming back none other than Lee Shackelford. Lee, how are you?
fantastic. Just
Absolutely.
absolutely fantastic. So, I don't have my force and mass canceling gloves, but like Mr. Brown, but I'm hanging in there. Haha.
We all can dream. We all can dream,
Exactly.
man.
I know. But not everybody can have them.
Well,
Wind
good
Grace
deal.
is in the chat, so good to see you.
Win Grace, good to
Indeed.
see you. Yes, indeed. And hope you also had an awesome Christmas. And Lee, how did you have? What was your Christmas?
It was very quiet and focused mostly on my lovely wife and me, and that's what I wanted for Christmas. So,
Very
very
awesome.
nice. Yep,
That's all right then, man.
that's
Well,
all
that's
right.
all
then.
right then.
Yeah, Clarence's little one is not yet at the package mangling stage yet, so yeah,
Yeah, not
something
quite,
to look
but-
forward to.
Yeah, well, she got some pretty good gifts in there, but not so much ripping it apart. It's more like,
Okay.
oh, let's help her here and there, and
Yeah.
good times though, good times.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I am glad to be here. Glad to have everyone again in the chat, and I had a good Christmas as well. Doctor Who returned to Christmas Day. Woohoo! Had some things I was saving for Christmas. I'll just briefly mention them. There was a Christmas episode of Vera. There was a Christmas episode of Beyond Paradise.
Right.
There was a Christmas episode coming, I believe, in 2 days, or if by this time, maybe one more day, of Death in Paradise. So I can't wait
Wow.
to see that. So a lot of Paradise things, but we are in Paradise because we are talking Doctor Who. So I just want to say before we move on, if you have not seen The Church on Ruby Road, put us on pause, go out, watch the episode, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers. Alrighty, the spoiler warning has gone out, and we are back to review The Church on Ruby Road. This is the 2023 Doctor Who Christmas special, first airing / streaming on the 25th of December, 2023. It starred Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor and introduced Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. I must comment on the mavity of this episode. It is as it is the first Doctor Who Christmas special since Twice Upon a Time on the 25th of December, 2017. It had an overnight viewing of 8.9 million, making it the highest rated Doctor Who Christmas special since 2010. And finally, according to Rotten Tomatoes, it has an overall 95% approval rating. Question, gentlemen, summary view. Lee Shackelford, I'll start with you. What say ye? Summary view.
Doctor Who is back for Christmas. How about that?
I like it. Clarence Brown, what say ye?
Oh man, the tapestry of Ruby Sunday. That's what I'll say. And really enjoyed the episode. Some things I had questions about, but second viewing, I think it really, really started to stick to me even more. Production levels, writing for the most part. Yeah, I love this episode. What about you, man?
I think I want to say, I always kind of fall right there with you guys, and I agree. But I think, Lee, I love what you said. Doctor Who is back for Christmas, where it belongs. All hail the power of RTD. Yes, I mean, it's not a January 1 episode. It is Christmas.
Right.
It deserves to be on Christmas. It just needs to be on Christmas. And this was an awesome Christmas episode. I really have no problem with it, but I want to get into it. So introductory scenes, we see the start of Ruby's story at the very beginning with this scene right before the opening credits, which are still beautiful, even though they didn't change it. I was kind of wondering if they were going to change it, but they didn't. I'm cool with that. No problem with that.
Yeah.
But we see Ruby's introduction, and we see Ruby having this exposition of her life with this TV host by the name of Davina McCall. I hope I pronounce her name correctly. Clarence, what were your thoughts on this exposition of how they introduced Ruby?
So I feel kind of dumb because I didn't put Ruby Sunday together with Ruby Road. I guess I should have known there was some connection there from the very beginning, but I guess I hadn't really thought about it too much. But yeah, excellent introduction. We get her brief backstory, through this interview. Kind of those shows where they trace down your heritage, or in this case, finding who her parents are, which we find out that's one of the big mysteries that we're going to be getting into this season. But yeah, great way to introduce this character. And, from all accounts early on, I'm loving Millie Gibson in the role. So yeah.
Lee, what say ye? What were your thoughts on this introduction?
It's a great expositional tool, isn't it, for getting us her backstory in a way that makes perfect sense to the story. We're doing a show about her. We have to talk about her origin story. And as somebody who has adopted a child, there was a part of me that said, well, not everybody wants to be tracked down by their, and then the host made a point of saying that. And so I really appreciated it. It's like she said, no, you do understand right up front, that if we find somebody that they have the option to say no. And I said, thank you. That's a little touch of real world guidance there. So it's nice.
And, I think it, once again, I think, we can pick apart writing as we want to. We can say that there were some things that may have fallen flat and there were some things that wouldn't. But I think this is where RTD excels at, is showcasing things that don't often get showcased, like foster families, the importance of having someone as a foster mother or foster father, and how you have the family you are born into, and then you have the family that you are made, that you make.
Yeah.
And, whether it's marrying and creating your own family or and having children, or whether it's creating your own family, there are still families, whether they're blood or not. And I loved how they wove this into the tapestry of this story.
Yeah.
But
That's a great point. Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, I feel dumb on this point because I thought foundling was a term that was unique to the Mandalorian. So when he said foundling here, I'm like, what?
What? You can't say that. Yeah. No.
But if-
that that's been around a while.
Well, I want to welcome someone else that has joining or has not joining us in the chat, has joined us in the chat. Tasha from After the Snap Movies and TV. She has been on discussing Trek, and she is a Star Trek and Doctor Who fan. So, Tasha, welcome. Glad to have you in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, gentlemen, I want to ask you guys, speaking of tapestry, we get into language and we see the doctor learning a different language, the language of ropes and the language of luck. What were your thoughts of the way Shuti's 15th Doctor explored things, and did he show his intelligence? Did he not show his intelligence? Lee, I'll start with you. What was your thoughts on how he interpreted finding out about things and how he interpreted things that was going on?
Well, he has great intelligence. Can I say great intelligence? No, no. We know things. There are things that we expect about the doctor, and he's got to be the smartest person in the room. And we saw that again and again, right up front. And so I said, we're back on board. This is the doctor, thank goodness. And he's also curious and always wants to know more as much as he knows. And so that was really exciting to me, is his curiosity. For Star Trek fans, it's got to make you think of Darmok a little bit, that he has the TARDIS, matrix going in his head so he can understand every language. But what if that's not enough? What if there's a language that you encounter that is, you can understand the words, but maybe you don't know what they mean? And so that's what he's unpacking here. And I thought that was really exciting to watch and listen to. What about you?
Clarence, what do you think?
For me, it was getting back to sort of this real-time analysis breakdown of how the doctor is thinking and feeling and breaking down a problem. I think this language of, and this vocabulary of, is something we're going to keep hearing from this doctor. At least I hope it's something we're going to keep hearing as he kind of sees something new and different, and he kind of tries to frame it and analyze it and dissect it. I thought that was very interesting, and it sounds like it's going to be sort of his tagline. So I hope to hear more of that.
I noticed that there's a tagline that he is picking up. Geronimo, for one, Alonzi for another, but he's picking up ta-da. That seems
I didn't even notice.
because he did that at least once or twice in this episode, and we know that he did that when he duplicated the TARDIS, spoilers, in the previous episode. So,
and always post regeneration, we're wondering how much does this doctor remember about being these other lives. So it's really nice that we're pegging down the corners of that right up front. So
and Tasha says in the chat she loves that Mavity is ongoing. I do too, because it gives me a joke that I can make Clarence go, "Oh God," about. So yes, I like that too. But I love the fact that it was something that happened, and the doctor doesn't realize it happened. It doesn't
that's fun.
feel like he's doing like, "Oh, look at me, I'm saying a word." No, it's part of the tapestry, going forward.
No, I'll step in Clarence's place and say, "Oh God," but because I hate like the Grinch hates Christmas, the Mavity thing. I just think it's stupid, and
That's because you don't appreciate it.
That's the hill I'm going to die on. I understand the gravity. Gravitas is a term in Latin that Isaac Newton knew. The whole scientific world knows what gravity was before he. Anyway,
and also I think it's something for new people who are new to Doctor Who coming in with this new season 1 that's coming up. We'll talk about that later, probably.
That's right.
but in the specials is a very simple example of what the doctor does by going in the past, and he can change something that affects the future. So if you saw the specials, you knew the Doctor Who, you can be like, oh, this could get serious if
That's what that is. Yeah.
something bad really happens. We get it again in this episode with Ruby, of course.
So let me ask you guys a question, and this is actually something that I had on my second page of notes, but I think it's appropriate for here, which is if you look at RTD1, and I'm talking about the episode Rose, the first introduction to a new generation, to a new audience in many ways of Doctor Who, and you see the Doctor, and you see the mindset that the Doctor is in, and you see the church on Ruby Road, because even though this Doctor was introduced in the previous, 60th anniversary special, theoretically, I think you could pick up without seeing that and not need that. Yes, it adds to it, but I think you could pick up here not needing, what came, in that 60th episode. But my question is, do you see the Doctor presented differently or the same way in this episode and in Rose? And Clarence, I think you were about to say something, so I'll point this to you first.
Differently or the same as in Rose? You talking about as far as the introduction goes?
Yeah, like is he in how he is presented? Because I have an opinion, but I want to know what you guys think.
I think there may be a little bit of that franticness we get with the Doctor and Rose as they're in the factory and running around at the very beginning. And all of a sudden they're sprung on this problem, and Rose is in the middle of it. So we kind of get the same thing here with Ruby as well. Maybe affecting Ruby a little bit more directly than it did Rose. But yeah, I think if I was to equate it to that initial episode of New Who, I would say the franticness of the Doctor, or the Doctor and the companion in this case.
All right, Lee, what do you say?
Yeah, I think that's the way to think of it, is that we get right into the action. If there's a difference, like we will remember the Ninth Doctor saying, it just takes her hand and says run.
Yeah.
And they never slow down after that. And the same kind of thing happens with Ruby, but there is the earlier introduction of him being there when she's about to fall down, have something land on her, whatever. So we walk up to it with a little bit more preamble this time. It's she at least gets to meet him, to see his face before they're off hanging onto a rope ladder. So there's a little bit of that, but I wanted to jump back very quickly to your point about this being, for a lot of people, this is going to be their introduction to this Doctor. And I think it really works. And I feel sure that's deliberate, that everybody on this team has said, okay, what if people are going to say, I didn't want to see that other stuff, but I'm going to start on Christmas Day. So yeah, I think it's why the last line of this is, I'm the Doctor.
Yep. I and I want to make a comment of what Wingray said in the chat. He says, I think the mysterious nature of the Doctor wasn't as dialed up in this episode, but it was reminiscent in the execution a bit. And I agree with that, because that's actually the point that I was going to make.
Yeah.
With the Ninth Doctor, I think you got a much sadder Doctor. He introduces himself as, I'm the last of the Time Lords. And in this incarnation, he still is in the 15th for all intents and purposes, for all he knows. For all we know, he's still the last of the Time Lords.
Is he?
At wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, I guess, maybe. But I love the fact, and I'm sure it could be, you're going to have a section of the fandom that would not like the scene that I'm about to talk about, but I loved seeing the Doctor dance. I loved seeing the Doctor having fun, because I don't think we often see the Doctor actually having fun. It's always the weight of the world on the Doctor. And yes, we know why he doesn't have the weight of the world from the last episode, but you don't need to know that to know that he was having fun. And I appreciate that. Thoughts?
Yeah, with the Ninth Doctor, it was a question. Does the Doctor dance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we've dispensed with that one right away.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
So I want to go on to the intelligent gloves. And Clarence, again, I feel like I'm pointing to you, but since you're wearing
He's got the gloves, you know.
I got to ask, what did you think about the gloves?
Brilliant. And just to go into like the way I don't know if it made a lot of sense, but explaining how the intelligence gloves worked by making you heavier or lighter. He also explained how the sonic screwdriver works as well. So I'm liking that we're seeing new gadgets early on. We're seeing the new Sonic explaining how some of these things work. I hope we continue to get stuff like that from this doctor, because I like, we got what was it, the mall when he, that TARDIS scene you were talking about, he pulled that out of nowhere. So maybe he's the gadget doctor. I don't know, but I really love the gloves, man. And, coming to a store near you.
Lee, thoughts?
That's true.
Sorry.
No, but we got to generate some merch here, right? If he's introduced to something new in every episode, that's why do you think the Iron Man armor keeps changing every time we see it? We got to sell some action figures here. Yeah, it's funny. We were just talking recently about our regrets to some degree about the 13th Doctor, and that we really liked when she'd put the goggles on and hot up a acetylene torch. Maybe now we're going to get that Doctor. We're going to get the steampunk. I'll just make one kind of Doctor, and I'm here for it. So.
And I hope I am pronouncing this name correctly from the chat, and I'm apologizing in advance if I'm not. But Lei Jin says the gloves are reminiscent, of MI4. I kind of like that. I agree with that. Wingrace also says it makes sense for him to have these gadgets. He stopped running and slowed down enough to plan ahead. So.
That's interesting.
And that's a good point. Yeah.
Here's another thing about, in the real world, quote unquote, implications, those gloves for cosplayers would be easily be able to create. Just get some black gloves, and you wouldn't even have to get the lights. You could get some either glitter or some kind of something that's
glow
gold.
stick or something sticking there.
Just something, but easily done as cosplayer. So I think it made, again, accessible for easily, anything that makes Doctor Who accessible is awesome, and that's what I really love about him.
Yeah.
So let's get into the goblins. Yeah. I loved the goblins, even though I didn't love them as much after the end of the episode. The goblins and the goblin song. Lee, I'll start with you. Thoughts about the goblins in general and the goblin song?
I've been on adventures of my own this week, and so I have not been hunkered down with the song or any of the I missed a week of conversation with you guys on Discord because I've been off doing my own thing. So I experienced the goblins and the goblin song for the first time in watching this show yesterday. So I got the coming in cold experience, and just what a lot of fun, and how well executed, just sort of technically, it's just a brilliant thing. And we had just been talking after one of our discussing Trek episodes about one day they might do a Doctor Who musical.
Oh boy.
We got the Doctor and the companions singing with the goblins. So bucket list achieved.
All right, before I move on to Clarence, did you like having the goblin follow up with the Doctor and Ruby singing? Did you like that?
I did. Yeah, no, I thought that whole thing was hilarious. It doesn't make any sense, but it's Christmas.
Okay. And that's all right then.
That's all right then.
So say we all.
Clarence.
Yes, Wingrace is saying, got to remind you of Time Bandits and Labyrinth. I thought the same thing. I wonder, yeah, there you go.
Well, I'll get to the goblin specifically, but on the song, I'll address that first. I loved it when the goblins were actually singing. I'm like, okay, this is their thing. This is their celebration. They're into it. I'm buying it. But oh man, when Millie and Ncuti started singing, I was like, oh my God, really? This is now a fantasy the sci-fi aspect has been pushed back a little bit, which is fine. Which is fine. I kind of realized there. We all realize there are a lot of fanciful, whimsy aspects in Doctor Who. So I was fine with it, but man, it really kind of threw me out of it a little bit. So, but yeah, well done though. Very well executed.
Yeah, I was not expecting the two of them to sing. I was
No.
amazed, and no offense to her, but he
Yeah.
has an awesome voice.
Of course.
You know, he did an awesome job. I mean, I would be happy to hear an entire song by him. But speaking of the Goblin song, I do know it was released on iTunes, and I think specifically in the UK. I'm not sure anywhere else, but I think it beat Mariah Carey as the top of the Christmas charts. For when it was released. But when we were watching it at home, I like waited all week, not even saying anything about the song. So when we were watching it and it comes on and I'm sitting there singing it with it, it was like, what the hell?
Yeah. How do you know the
How do
words
you
to
know
this?
this and it's just now coming on? So that was awesome.
Yeah, and can we point out? Tasha mentions it in the chat, but they were very reminiscent of the Gremlins. That's what I kind of thought too from the Goblins. And let me just say the technical brilliance of this episode I thought was off the charts. Everything just looked beautiful. I mean, it's as unbelievable as goblins running around in a flying pirate ship are.
Yeah.
It all looked great, like it could have been on the movie screen. So I just thought the way they executed the episode was just brilliant. I mean, the goblins, that seemed like a lot of work.
Yeah.
and they
Yeah,
just
there's a lot of
executed
work there.
flawlessly. Yeah.
And even the scenes that were not up in the sky, the scenes of the church, the scenes of Ruby getting off the bus, or the snowman falling on the doctor.
Yeah.
Even all of that seemed, as far as budget wise, seemed so much more vibrant, so much prettier, so much whatever word you want to use, insert in
Cinematography
there.
was great.
It
Yeah.
just looked awesome.
I'm glad you mentioned the snowman because I wanted to say that the first Christmas specials established sort of a pattern, or there's an idea that we had to keep coming back to, that it was going to be something that familiar that you love from Christmas, except now it's going to kill you. And so we had Killer Christmas Tree, we had Killer Robot Santas, we had and I was missing that. So up until the point where the snowman fell on him, and I said, "Thank you." It's just we ticked that box so we can move on. So to me, it's not a Doctor Who Christmas special without that. So
Well, I will take it, but I will slant what you just said ever so slightly with RTD. So we've had Killer Snowman before, and
That's true.
The Snowman. However, RTD loves taking something commercialized from Christmas and making it killer.
Right.
Hence
Right.
the snowman decoration.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think was even more brilliant.
Well, also the Christmas
That's
tree
interesting.
that almost fell on Davina.
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it did.
Well, it
That it
did.
didn't.
Yeah.
So let's.
A good point, though.
Very good point. So let's go on a little bit further up. Let's talk a little bit about the mom and the grandmom. And Lee, I'll point this one to you first. Any thoughts in particular about mom and grandma? Carla and Cherry were their names.
Yes, she's Cherry Sunday. I just
See what you did there.
that's just I love it. Yeah. Um yeah, I think for story purposes, by the time Ruby disappears, we really, really have to love them. We got to love her mother and her grandmother. And we just see the love that they all have for each other, and the open heartedness of constantly taking in to welcoming strangers, because you might entertain an angel. I just was so on board with them, and I think that's just really good writing. We cared about them deeply, very quickly, and so then when we see the refrigerator and the little photographs aren't there, it's like a punch in the stomach. And that's great. That's exactly they served all the story purposes that they're supposed to, and the performances are great.
Mm.
So yeah, you can't not be on board with them. And since this is a rare case, maybe unique in that the companion encountered in the Doctor Who Christmas special is actually going to become the companion going forward.
Mm.
Very.
I mean, when it happened with Donna Noble, that wasn't the original plan.
No,
So
it wasn't.
yeah,
Absolutely wasn't.
so I think this is the first time that we've had somebody from the Christmas special going forward. That means we're going to get mother and grandmother from time to time as well.
Yeah.
So
So-
I'm all for it.
So technically, you could say Clara, but that wasn't the same Clara. Spoilers.
I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, as much as Clarence would probably wish it were, but it wasn't the same
Well,
Clara.
we don't. Yeah.
So, Clarence, what did you think of Mom and Grandma?
I think this falls right in the line of lovable companion parents. Definitely. I think, if I have to think back on New Who, maybe the most, I ain't gonna say likable, but the most forgettable parent group might be Yaz's parents.
Yeah.
But but yeah, this is right in line with lovable companion parents. Like Lee said, you really have to, have a heart for what's going on with Carla when we see the tapestry unfold, and just the absence of Ruby now makes her life very sad, and
Right.
especially impacting those kids that are on the wall that aren't there anymore. And it just kind of lets you show how one good thing can set you off in the right direction. So
That's right.
yeah, really felt for that family. Also liked how Carla is onto the retro tech train with the Polaroid. So yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You wait
So-
long enough, they'll become popular again. Yeah.
So I want
She's
to
right.
bring in a few comments from Jamie in the chat. He says that he said that RTD has stated that creating a companion family is one of his niches, and I agree with that, and I believe that is 100% true. Lei Jen says, love the mom and grandmom so much. They felt like New Who companion families wrapped up in one in them. I agree with that. One thing that I did notice, which I thought was quite interesting, was you had the introduction of the grandma parallel a little bit to the introduction to the mom for Rose, which of course is Jackie Tyler. You had a little bit more antagonistic between Ninth Doctor and Jackie in that introduction. I'm in my nightgown, comment, but you still had that cheeky banter back and forth between Grandma and the Doctor, which he killed it, she killed it. Awesome, awesome scene. So I did like about the family as we move into another part of the conversation, how it paralleled with the Doctor being an orphan,
yes,
she being an orphan, and
Yep.
then the impact of one person
Being
that they
gone.
could have. I loved how that was done. Clarence, what did you think of how things changed when Ruby disappeared?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. Seeing how, like I just mentioned before, seeing how it impacted her family, how those pictures were not on the wall, and how the mother was just like a shell of what she was when her orphan, now adopted daughter brought life into her family. So yeah, just a stark difference there. And again, you got to relate that on how it impacts the Doctor. Well, if the Doctor wasn't there, how would the world be different? And the fact that we mentioned up top that he's a foundling as well. He's an orphan. And it seems like if you want to bring out one maybe brooding thing that we mentioned from the Doctor, in the Ninth Doctor in his memory, maybe this is going to be something for this Doctor. The continued thing of like, what is my true origin? Which like I said, if you're going to take that story and do something with it, I think this is a good way to push it, and hopefully we get some revelations in that aspect.
All right, Lee, what say you?
Yeah, all the same, and it is interesting to start the doctor and the new doctor and a new companion off in some ways on the same foot. That neither of them, that both of them have a mystery of where they came from. Um, and Jamie, whose gender we're presuming, I don't know. You said he, and I did. Anyway,
Oh,
Yeah,
um, J-
I believe I've seen that from comments on Facebook, so
okay,
I didn't just assume.
I have learned
I
not
think I'm
to
right,
assume.
Jamie. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yes, yes, please correct us here. Anyway, Jamie asks, have we seen the stills where baby Ruby's being taken to the church and the person carrying her looks like they're wearing the 13th Doctor's shoes?
mm,
I had not, but okay, we were
that
right
would be
about Jamie.
cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Very interesting, but yeah, so, and we'll get to Mrs. Flood in a few minutes, I'm
Yes.
sure. So,
Well, let me say this. I hope that's not right. Been there,
Oh,
done that.
I,
come on now, Kyle.
I been there, done that. There
When
is
do we
a
do
part.
that specifically?
There, look. There is a part of me.
You don't want to see the 13. Let's be honest here.
Okay, all right. Let me just say Let me just say this. There is a part of me in some faction of my mind that is curious as to what the 13th would be on an episode written by RTD. Yes.
oh,
So
that's true. Yeah.
that being said, 15 is here, 13 is gone. The shoes are a coincidence, and you know what happens to coincidences? They get eaten by goblins. There
There
you
you
go.
go. And it's not like those are particularly unique shoes either, right? You
Yeah.
know, I
I
don't
was
know.
I was thinking the walk reminded me of Amy a little bit, but I need to go back and watch it again. I don't know. Maybe there's not enough there to devise anything.
Well,
So
yeah,
no,
okay.
no. Go ahead, please.
I know I was about to talk about something that I'm sure chronologically is later. I just, yeah,
All right. So let me ask you a question. So the doctor goes back, and he realizes what's happening. He goes back. We see the gloves again in their brilliance as the doctor brings down the house literally with our friends, the goblins, and the impaling of the Goblin King, as we see happen. My question to you guys is this, and I am wondering if this is where you were going, Lee, is why do we think the doctor did not stop the mom and find out who the mom was?
that was my question exactly.
Okay, so
It,
answer
he,
that question.
well, I love the way that he played it physically. He moved in that direction and stopped himself, and then
Mm,
kind of backpedaled toward the TARDIS. Like, no, no.
mm.
And I thought that's a decision. That's not. He's letting her go. Why? And I think that's intriguing.
Okay, Clarence, what do you think?
I'm right there with Lee. I mean, of course, the thing we would want the doctor to do is go and see who it is, but it's definitely something we're going to revisit. And as far as setting up a mystery for season 1 that's coming up, I think it's a good one.
Okay, so on my first watch through, I was like, why didn't he? My second watch through, I was like, had he, would that have erased Ruby Sunday?
Interesting. Yeah.
Meaning, if he would have found out who her mom was, would that have then had a cause and effect thing as potentially changing the Ruby that disappeared, the Ruby
Right.
that we saw for the entirety of the episode?
And nobody would know that better than him. So,
Correct.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Someone in the chat has already mentioned Father's Day, that this eerily parallels or is a mirror image of Father's Day. And that would be, that's reason enough for me to say, you know what? That's her mother. I'm not going anywhere near her.
okay.
Let's just not. Yeah. So,
So speaking of Father's Day and a item chronologically,
yeah,
whatever word I'm
whatever.
supposed to use, Mavity. I don't know. But speaking of, things that were established in previous episodes, I want to move on to Mrs. Flood. So we get this angry old lady at the beginning that seems to become a nice old lady at the end, per se, and then is a oddly breaking the fourth wall of old lady with doesn't anybody recognize the TARDIS at the very, very, very end? Thoughts on Mrs. Flood, Clarence?
My best guess is that it may be Missy or the Master,
Ooh.
because obviously it seems like that person knows who the Doctor is, or at least that's what I gathered from it. Even saying TARDIS, so yeah, definitely somebody that is very close to the Doctor in some way. So who knows?
Well, and Mrs. Flood objected to the phone box being on the sidewalk next to her house to begin with.
Correct.
So Jamie's asking, wasn't there a female Time Lord? Yeah, we always are looking for Romana. So I would love it if somehow this turned out to be Romana, just because we keep saying, are we just going to let Romana leave her out there somewhere? So yeah, who knows?
She hasn't seen a police box in 50 years, I believe she says.
That's what she said. So I'm wondering if the Mrs. Flood at the beginning of this episode and the one at the end is the same person.
Interesting, because and when Grace did say, didn't she say, I haven't seen one of these in 50 years?
Right.
I think that is a clue. If we go back and we use the Star Beast as any indication, the Rose reveal was laid out in the episode. You go back after you realize, and that's one thing that RTD is. Go back to RTD version 1, his first era, and a lot of the things that he laid out were laid out in front of us. We just didn't see it sprinkled until we got the revelation at the end. Case in point, Harold Saxon. Without spoiling Harold Saxon. Could it be, there's a comment that says, I don't think that the first Mrs. Flood and the last are the same. I agree with that. Or could the change in time have impacted her?
Oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like the salt at the end of the universe. That once you crack their house open, then maybe it lets something in. I wonder.
This crack. Okay, you mentioned crack.
Yeah.
This crack is. Do we think that's any way tying into Matt Smith's Doctor at all, or it's just like?
I don't think so, but because I didn't think that until I just said the word crack out loud. But I did sort of wonder. There's got to be a way to fix this, isn't there? I mean, we're just gonna leave it like that. But
I took it sort of as they cracked time, but then if they cracked time, why didn't the crack correct again? Because he was happy that the crack returned. So
yeah, so
that just didn't quite make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there she is. I was about to say somebody, who was it? And then I remembered it was Kyle. It was you. I said on social media earlier today, maybe that's Ruby.
Hold that thought. And I don't think you said it yet, but I have seen. Let me put out some names that I have seen as who she may be.
Yeah.
River. I don't think so. No. Susan, I don't think it should be if Carol Ann Ford is still alive. And
that's true. I really
recording.
Exactly. God bless her.
Ronnie, interesting.
Possible.
Missy,
possibly.
I have not seen Romana until our chat in this conversation that we've had, in the last 15 minutes. But here's who I think it might be. And this is where you were about to go, Lee, which is, what if it's Ruby?
I said it.
You said it.
Yeah.
Well, what if it's Ruby?
Well, and my ancillary question is, what if that's who leaves the baby at the church?
Okay, now my brain hurts.
I love it. I love a paradox. What if Ruby's the one who left her baby at
and she created herself.
Right. Hey, where did Captain Kirk's bifocals come from? Do you remember Dr. McCoy gives them to him as a present in Wrath of Khan, and he sells them to an antique store in Star Trek 4. So where do they come from? And time travel stories, we often get paradoxes like that. The film Somewhere in Time, has a pocket watch that comes from nowhere, as we'll discover as the thing comes along. So it would be interesting. Maybe the mystery about Ruby is that she doesn't come from anywhere. That there isn't an answer to that. I don't know. I don't know.
Hey, you're the writer here, man. Come on. Come
You-
on.
by the way, this is a sidebar, but if you know anything about quantum mechanics, and I'm not acting like I do, I just know, sort of layman terms, but I just saw it posited last week by one of my brainy nerd friends that Santa Claus is composed of these theoretical particles because they can't be observed directly, and they can be in more than one place at a time.
Mm.
And I said, my God, that explains everything. Anyway.
Hey, Cal, can we pick up Win Grace's comment there
Yes, indeed.
about the flood?
Go ahead and read it out if you don't mind.
Ooh.
Yeah, where he's saying, I personally think flood might be a clue. She's part of a flood of things that spilled into the universe when the Doctor invoked myths at the edge of creation.
Ooh,
Mhm.
I like that.
The flood.
Mm. I like making people's brain hurt. That's
Yeah.
good because Jamie says, now my brain hurts. Well, that's welcome to the world of Doctor Who.
There you go.
I like the idea that it's Ruby. I don't want it to be just something boring. And if it's RTD, it's not going to be boring. But in my opinion,
I'm not saying he's
all hail the RTD.
he's not incapable of, but
for the most part.
but still, what is she doing there? Why is she there?
Is she pushing herself to where she creates herself?
Mm-hmm. She's apparently been a family friend for years. So she's been an influence on Ruby growing up.
Or going at a completely different direction. Out of all the names that it would be cool for this person to be, knowing the character of the Ronnie, it would make more sense. And you brought the perfect reason for it to be the Ronnie, Lee, is if she's been there observing all these years, this is an experiment for her, creating a companion, creating the perfect companion, and then having that perfect companion be she basically puts the companion with the Doctor because she basically says, go on in, Ruby, good luck, Ruby. There's
That's
where you
true.
need to go.
Yeah.
She pushes her in that direction.
Well, that's the River Song story too, though. So
True. One thing I do want to
Spoilers.
say before we move on, that I do want to say, this is a rewriting of an idea that, in my opinion, RTD had that he did not use in the first series back in 2005, was when the Ninth Doctor went back and basically followed Rose's life. And
Oh yeah.
you remember that? And it
Right.
was a story that he didn't use because he didn't like the tone of it.
We all said
similar
grooming.
thing. Yeah. Grooming, and it was kind of creepy.
Yeah. Right.
This didn't come across as creepy to me.
No,
he saved
no.
the baby. It wasn't he groomed the baby. In my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, so gentlemen, before we get into our finals, we are in 48 minutes into our discussion. Are there any other topics, good or bad, that you would like to bring up before we get into our favorites? So, Lee, I'll start with you. Any other topics?
I'm curious to know from everybody because to me it's just good writing. It's good Doctor Who. The Doctor has got to be ahead of us. We can't be saying, Doctor, wake up. Don't you know what's happening? And as soon as we saw that Ruby had disappeared, I, out in the audience, said, the goblins took her back in time. They've eaten Ruby.
Yeah.
I mean, like that. And so I was getting impatient with him. And to me, it's the only writing flaw in this, or that it's a big one. I just thought, what's happening here? Because either I'm way wrong, and then when he got to it, we were thinking the same thing. But hello. So, anybody else? What were your thoughts about that, guys? Did you?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was meant to just show the impact of what's her name, Carla's life when Ruby's not there.
I wouldn't have wanted to skip past that. That's true.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm with you. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you because I was also wondering why didn't the doctor see it a little bit, but I think having him in the same location as he needed to be able to run out into the hall and leave and then come back in
Yeah.
order for us, the audience, to have that, ooh, the walls are different.
That's
Ooh,
very exciting. Yeah.
you couldn't have had that moment if all of a sudden, well, you could have but he would have had to have purposely gone, I think, and looked in the kitchen and said something about the walls. And I think it was a decision of show, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And we've said that before. We like to be shown things, not
Yes.
told things.
Right.
But
Very true.
in order to be able to show, not tell in this situation, I think you had to have the doctor to be a little bit slow on the uptake in order to be able to show. So I think you
Right.
had to sacrifice something.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about striking a balance, and I just felt the balance was off. But yeah, it gave the actor who plays Carla a chance to play basically two different characters.
Yes.
That we saw.
cool.
We saw the woman who never knew Ruby, and yeah,
And even the
terrible.
grandmother, Cherry, her portrayal of just that despondent.
yeah. She's
You
not
know,
even sitting up now. Yeah.
Yes, and even the look of her and the colorization of her room
That's
and
true.
the clothes and the blankets, everything was drab and gray compared to vibrant and alive previously.
They were able to make it. It's a Wonderful Life, weren't they? Just
Yeah.
in that. Yeah. Very nice.
Kudos, real quick before we move on. Since we were talking about that, why are you crying? Why are you crying?
Yeah.
And both of them played that. The doctor, Shuti played it awesomely, as well as this actor who played the mom, Carla, played that really, really awesomely.
We don't get the doctor crying that often.
No, we don't. And he did an awesome job at crying. So,
Yeah.
all right, Clarence Brown, any other thoughts from you, good or bad, before we move on?
So I didn't know this, but apparently the lady who played Davina McCall is Davina McCall in real life, and she was in the Bad Wolf episode playing the Davina droid.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess people in the UK are more familiar with this
That's
actor
right.
than we would be
Yeah.
over here. But that's
She
a cool
is a
thing.
presenter a la someone that's on every game show over here. She's been in like The Biggest Loser. She's done this Tell Me or something to that effect. She's done Big Brother, all these different things for Channel 4, ITV. So she's well known as a TV host or presenter in the UK.
And briefly, I'll also add that I had to look up the term pram, which is commonly called a stroller in the U.S.
Yes. Short for perambulator. It just
Perambulator.
means take something for a walk. Yeah.
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 Well,
They
one
do
of my
say
favorite-
perambulator.
One of my favorite words that kind of broke my brain that they say in the UK that we have over here, just not said the same, is aluminium. otherwise known as aluminum.
Ooh, I fought with somebody about that, and I was wrong.
Yeah, aluminum.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. No, the one that always gets me is pants, because if I tell people I've got my pants on, they'll go, "Well, I don't want to see that."
Yeah, that was
Hmm.
because I
Got
saw
your
the
pants
shoot.
on,
what-
and then you
the
have your
shooting behind-
trousers.
Yeah, the shooting behind the scenes were talking about he had to wear his pants. I'm like, what? Those are
Yeah.
whitey tighty
Yeah,
whities.
those
Yeah.
aren't pants. Yeah.
But yeah, of course, lost in translation. The language of the UK.
Exactly. Well, George Bernard Shaw said we're two countries divided by a common language.
That is so true.
It's so true.
All right. So, any other things before Clarence? Was that all of yours?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. You sure?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Awesome. All right. So let's get into our favorite scene. Favorite scene. I'll start with this one since I don't have our names
You should.
listed. Favorite scene, the doctor dances. I loved it. I hands down loved the energy. It got me in a good mood starting. And let me just say, without a doubt, I am quickly thinking that this is going to become one of my all-time favorite doctors. I'm just saying it from the very beginning. I may hate him at the end of season 1, but in my 2 appearances that I've seen of him, he is quickly becoming solidified as one of my all-time favorites. So the doctor dances, favorite scene for me. Clarence Brown, what say you?
My favorite scene is going to be pulling down the ship with the intelligence gloves. You know, the gravity of the situation. Thought it was great. Yeah, so that was fun. Got to see a little action. Got some action from Shooty in this episode. You know, jumping onto the ladder and also
Yeah.
pulling the whole ship down. So
It's
pretty cool stuff.
Some full-on parkour going over the tops of the buildings there too.
Yes.
He's fit. This doctor.
Good deal.
So-
And real quick, before I move on to you, Lee, for everyone in the chat, we are coming up on our final rating, 1 to 5 of whatever Time Lordian or episode thing that you want to make it. So go ahead and start listing your review ratings in the chat, and we will include those when we get to them. But favorite scene, Lee Shackelford, what was yours?
Maybe I'm nuts, but I loved the doctor and Ruby singing with the goblins. I know it doesn't make any sense, but I love that.
Awesome. All right. So, favorite quote. I'm going to go in reverse order. Lee Shackelford, favorite quote.
I love this description, and I love the way that the actor plays it. Ruby, when she's trying to describe the doctor, Mrs. Flood, did you see there was a man? He was about so high and amazing in a big leather coat. It's just that her descriptor is amazing. I just love it. About so high and amazing. Yeah. You see anybody like that?
All right. Clarence Brown, what say ye?
I'm probably going to take cows on this one. I'm going to take the low hanging fruit of the night. And it's going to be simply, I'm the doctor.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So my favorite quote was actually an exchange. I didn't take the low-hanging fruit, even though he did. I loved that ending. Just FYI, my favorite quote was him going, "Name, the doctor. Occupation, not a doctor. Employer, myself. Address, that blue box over there."
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I love all variations of that. Anytime it happens. Yeah.
All right, so final rating. Clarence Brown, I'll start with you. Final rating.
I think I'm going to give this one 4.6 hot Houdini summers out of 5.
Ooh.
It's a
Interesting.
whole summer. Yeah.
All right. Clarence Brown. What's the,
No. All right, then.
well, that's all right
Let's
then. All right.
You're back on again.
Lee Shackelford. I was stuck on the Houdini Summers. Lee Shackelford. What
I'm
say
going to
you?
I'm going to go a little higher and give it 4.8 baby rubies.
So I'm going to give it 4.8 as well. Singing doctors out of 5. So I think it's universal.
He sings, he dances.
He sings, he dances, he doctors.
Hmm.
But what does the chat say? And the chat says from Lei Jen, 4.5. From Jamie, 4 out of 5 falling snowmen.
Yeah.
From our friend Tasha, 5 out of 5 request for teas. Ooh, I like that.
What do you have to do to get a cup of tea in this
What do
place?
you have to do? All right, and I'll add that when Grace says, speaking of time travel, how about how indignant he got when Ruby called the goblins time travel?
Oh, time travelers are
They are
the
not.
best.
They're
Yeah.
the best. They're awesome. All right. Well, for everyone listening and watching, if you're listening, thank you for listening. One thing I forgot about, and Lee Shackelford, we're waiting until the end, but I want to ask the question. If someone is listening to us for the very first time, or if they're listening and chatting with us, what do you always like to
Yeah,
say?
this is not an inappropriate time to say because it's just thank you. We know you got other things you could be doing. It's a busy time of year, and you chose to spend this time with us. Thank you so very much.
And Clarence Brown, if we have someone listening for the very first time or watching for the very first time, what would you like to tell them?
Yeah, I'd like to tell them you can support the show by subscribing, leaving a review, and more importantly, telling a friend. If you have a review idea, please send that in along with anything else you want us to know to discussingwho@gmail.com or discussingwho on any and all social medias. And I'll also add real quick, if you didn't know, we do have a Patreon as well. And you can follow for free. You don't have to give anything. You can follow for free. So you can go and follow us on Patreon. If you want to throw us a coffee or two, feel free to do that as well.
How about that? You remind me that another thing very quickly. I want to give a shout out for everybody that if you have not heard Kyle and Clarence's Discussing Trek, where they wrapped up the year in Trek, then drop what you're doing,
Oh,
run over to that podcast and listen because I thought it was an outstanding episode of Discussing Trek. So
thank you,
yeah.
sir.
Well,
Yeah.
always enjoy talking Trek with Clarence and, our friend Larry, who is always on there with us as well. And
Mhm.
Tasha
That's right, Larry
and
was
Win
there.
Grace also join us very often in the chat. So, love being there for that as well. And I do believe for 2023, this will be the last time we will be together on Discussing Who for 2023, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode. I look forward to May 2023 because that is when series quote unquote 1 returns. Just saying. Begins,
Can
returns.
series 1 return? Yeah.
It can in the world of Doctor Who.
Exactly. Wibbly wobbly.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, or as Kyle has now captured and said, from this point forward, well, that's all right then. And with that, everyone, we will see you next time.